The Velkari Institute floated quietly in space above the planet Thesic Prime. It was a school for aliens from many different worlds. Young students came here to learn about science, math, and how to work with other species. The building was huge, with white walls and big windows that showed the stars outside. Inside, everything was clean and safe and controlled. Lab 7 was on the third deck. Professor Zinthar stood at the front of the room teaching his chemistry class. He was a Velkari, which meant he was tall and thin with blue skin that could change colors. He had forearms which made it easy to handle all the equipment he needed. Right now, he was showing his students how to mix different chemicals safely. 20 students sat behind clear barriers watching carefully. They came from all over the galaxy. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin like the professor, but they all had one thing in common. They all came from safe worlds where life was easy and comfortable. The professor picked up a small bottle with one hand and a measuring tool with another. His other two hands were making notes on a screen. He spoke in a calm voice, explaining what he was doing. The students wrote everything down. This was a normal day. A boring day, even. Then everything changed. The wall exploded, metal screamed as it tore apart. A huge object smashed through the outer hull, then through the next wall, then into the lab. Alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. The students screamed too, jumping up from their seats. An escape pod. That was what had hit them. It was round and gray with burn marks all over it. Smoke poured out from the sides. The whole front end was crushed from the impact. It had punched through the school like a bullet through paper. Emergency doors slammed shut all around the lab. The computer system thought there was a hull breach, so it locked everything down to stop the air from escaping. But that meant the students were trapped. They ran to the doors and pulled at them, but nothing happened. Professor Zinthar tried to stay calm. His skin had turned from blue to almost white, which meant he was scared. But he was a teacher, so he had to help his students. He pressed buttons on his wrist device, trying to call for help. The device beeped and showed that a message was sent. Help was coming, but it would take time. The pod made a loud hissing sound. Chemicals from the broken lab equipment were mixing on the floor, making strange colored smoke. The air system was trying to clean it, but there was too much. Some students started coughing. Then the pod door blew open with a bang. A figure stumbled out. It was hard to see through all the smoke. But as the smoke cleared, everyone could see it better. It walked on two legs like many species did. It was about 2 meters tall, which was pretty big. It wore a torn flight suit that was burned in places. The suit was orange and black with writing on it that nobody could read. The figure coughed and waved its hand in front of its face. Then it put one hand against the pod to steady itself. It looked hurt. When it turned to face the class, everyone could see it clearly for the first time. Someone in the back of the room said one word. Just one word, but it made everyone freeze. Human. The room went silent except for the alarms. Every student stared at the creature that had crashed into their lab. They had all heard about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about humans by now. The stories were terrifying. Humans came from a planet called Earth. Earth was a Class 12 death world. Most scientists thought nothing smart could live on a Class 12 world. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too violent. The whole planet was covered in things that could kill you. Poisonous plants, deadly animals, diseases that could wipe out entire species. But somehow humans had survived there. More than survived. They had become the top predators on their entire planet. And now one of them was here in their classroom. The human dropped to one knee. It looked around at all the scared faces staring back at it. Then it looked at Professor Zinthar, whose skin was now almost pure white. The human spoke. A small device on its suit translated the words into Galactic Standard. Sorry about your wall. My ship got hit by raiders. I had to eject. Its voice was deep and rough. The translator made it sound normal, but there was something about it that made everyone nervous. Maybe it was knowing that this creature came from a nightmare world. Maybe it was the way it looked at them with forward-facing eyes. Predator eyes. Nobody moved. Nobody said anything. They just stared. The human tried to stand up but had trouble. It put one hand against its side. When it pulled the hand away, everyone could see blood. Dark red blood that looked almost purple in the lab lights. The human was bleeding badly. The blood was dripping onto the floor, making a small pool, but the human was still standing. Still conscious. Still talking. Any other species would have passed out from losing that much blood. Most would have died already. But the human just pressed its hand back against the wound and stayed on its feet. A small student named Pip whispered to the person next to her. "Why is it still moving?" "It should be dead," Professor Zinthar heard her. He was wondering the same thing. Everything he had read about humans said they were tough, but this was beyond tough. This was impossible. The creature should be unconscious at minimum. But it was standing there like the injury was just a minor problem. The professor's training kicked in. He was a teacher. He had to handle this situation. He raised all four of his hands slowly, trying to show he meant no harm. His voice shook when he spoke. "Please, human, stay where you are. Do not move. Help is coming." The human looked at him with those forward-facing eyes, predator eyes that could track prey with perfect accuracy. Then it looked down at the blood on the floor. "I can see I am bleeding on your floor. Do you have a first aid kit? Maybe some bandages?" The professor almost laughed, but it came out as a strange choking sound. The human was asking for bandages like it had a paper cut, like it was not losing enough blood to kill 3 Velkari. "You are injured," the professor said, stating the obvious. His translator chip was working hard to keep his voice steady. "How badly are you hurt?" The human looked at its wound again. It moved its hand slightly to get a better look. Fresh blood ran down its side. "Not too bad. A piece of metal hit me when I ejected. Looks worse than it is. Not too bad." The creature had a hole in its side big enough to put a fist through, and it said it was not too bad. The students pressed themselves against the far wall. Some of them were crying. Others looked like they might faint. One student actually did faint, dropping to the floor in a heap. Nobody moved to help her because nobody wanted to get closer to the human. The human noticed their fear. Its face changed, showing confusion. "Hey, it is okay. I am not going to hurt anyone. I just need to contact my ship and get out of here." But when it spoke, some students saw inside its mouth. They saw teeth. Lots of teeth, white and sharp and made for tearing meat. The human was not even trying to threaten them, but its biology did it automatically. More students made scared sounds. Another one fainted. The human raised one hand slowly, maybe trying to show it was friendly. But the students saw the movement and panicked more. That hand could probably crush their bones. Those fingers could probably tear through their skin. Professor Zinthar knew he had to keep control. Security would be here soon. He just had to keep everyone calm until then. Keep the human calm too, because an angry Deathworlder was the last thing they needed. "Please," he said again. "Please just stay still. We will help you. Just do not make any sudden moves." The human lowered its hand. It looked sad now, or maybe tired. Hard to tell with an alien face. "I understand. I will wait here." Outside the lab, heavy boots were running down the hallway. Security was coming. The professor just hoped they would get here before something went wrong. Before the injured predator decided it was threatened. Before instinct took over and the human showed them why Earth was a death world. The human leaned against its escape pod, still holding its side. Still bleeding. Still conscious when it should have been dead. And everyone in the room wondered the same thing. What kind of creature could survive injuries like that? What kind of world could create something so impossibly tough? They were about to learn that humans were full of surprises, and not all of them were bad. The security team would arrive in minutes. Professor Zinthar knew this because his wrist device told him so. But minutes felt like hours when you were trapped in a room with a Deathworld predator. He tried to remember everything he had learned about humans in the emergency briefings that all teachers had to attend after Earth joined the galactic community. The facts were not comforting. Humans evolved on a planet with gravity almost twice as strong as most civilized worlds. This meant their muscles were incredibly dense and powerful. A human could crush most alien bones with their bare hands without even trying hard. Their skeletal system was reinforced with thick, heavy bones that could take impacts that would shatter a Velkari into pieces. Earth's atmosphere was 21% oxygen. Oxygen was highly reactive and corrosive. Most species could only breathe it in small amounts mixed with safer gases. But humans needed it in high concentrations just to survive. Their whole biology was built around burning oxygen like fuel, which gave them incredible endurance and energy. The professor watched the human carefully. Danny Hayes. That was the name the translator had picked up from his earlier words. Lieutenant Danny Hayes, a military rank which made sense. Only the toughest humans would be sent into space, And if this was one of their normal soldiers, what would their elite forces be like? Danny was still bleeding. The professor could see it clearly now. The wound was deep and wide, cutting through the flight suit and into the flesh beneath. Blood ran down the human side in steady streams. Any Velkari would have been unconscious 3 minutes ago, dead after 5. But Danny just stood there, pressing his hand against the injury like it was a minor annoyance. The students were whispering to each other now that the initial shock was wearing off. The professor could hear fragments of their conversations. "Did you see its teeth? I heard humans can run for days without stopping. My teacher said they eat meat. Raw meat sometimes. They have forward-facing eyes. That means predator. I heard their planet has creatures that can eat them, and they still survived." The last comment made the professor think. Yes, humans were apex predators on their world, but Earth also had things that hunted humans. Giant reptiles in the water, huge cats in the forests, massive bears in the mountains, even tiny creatures like insects and bacteria that could kill a human if they got the chance. And yet humans had won. They had beaten everything their world threw at them and climbed to the top of the food chain. What did that say about them? What kind of species could do that? Danny shifted his weight and several students gasped. The human froze immediately. He had noticed how scared they were. His face showed understanding now. Or at least the professor thought it was understanding. Human faces were hard to read. "I know I look scary," Danny said quietly. His voice was tired but calm. "I know what the galaxy thinks about humans, but I promise you I am not dangerous. Not to you. I am just trying to get home." A brave student named Kellic spoke up. His voice shook, but he managed to get the words out. "Are you going to eat us?" Danny's eyes went wide. The professor had learned that this meant surprise in human expressions. "What? No, why would I eat you? You are people. Humans do not eat people. But you are omnivores," another student said. "You eat anything." "We eat plants and animals," Danny explained. He spoke slowly, probably trying not to scare them more. "We do not eat intelligent species. That would be like, I do not know, like you eating your teacher. It is wrong. Humans have rules about stuff like that." This seemed to calm some students down, but others were still terrified. The professor understood why. It was hard to overcome instinct. These young people came from safe worlds where the most dangerous thing they might encounter was a small storm or a mildly poisonous plant. They had no framework for understanding a creature like Danny. The human coughed and winced. More blood dripped to the floor. He was getting paler, the professor noticed. Even Deathworlders had limits. How much blood could a human lose before it became critical? "You need medical attention," the professor said. He tried to keep his voice steady and authoritative. "Your injury is severe." Danny looked down at his wound and made a face. "Yeah, it is not great. But I have had worse. This one time during training, I broke 3 ribs and punctured a lung. That was much worse than this." The students made sounds of horror. One of them threw up. The casual way Danny talked about breaking bones and damaged organs was deeply disturbing to species that rarely got injured at all. "How did you survive that?" Pip asked. She was small even for a Quilian, barely a meter tall. She looked like she might run away at any second. "Human medicine is pretty good," Danny said, "and our bodies heal fast compared to most species, I guess. The doctors fixed me up in a couple of weeks. I was back to full duty after 2 months. 2 months to recover from punctured organs." The professor had read about human healing rates, but hearing it from a human directly was different. Most species would take years to recover from injuries like that. Some would never fully heal. But humans just patched themselves up and kept going. The door's locking mechanism beeped. Security was trying to override it. Danny heard the sound and tensed. The professor saw his body language change. The human was preparing for a threat. Instinct again. On a death world, everything was a potential threat until proven otherwise. "Danny," the professor said, using the human's first name to try to establish trust. "Security is coming. They will be armed. Please do not make aggressive moves. They are scared too." Danny nodded slowly. "I understand. I will cooperate fully. I do not want trouble. I just want to go home." There was something in his voice that caught the professor's attention. Pain, yes, but also sadness. Loss. The human had mentioned raiders attacking his ship. What had happened to his crew? Were they dead? Did this human lose friends today? "Your ship," the professor said gently. "Were there others on board?" Danny's face changed. His jaw got tight and his eyes looked down. 17 people. Good people. We were just doing survey work, mapping asteroids. Nothing dangerous. And then 3 raider ships jumped us out of nowhere. The room went quiet. Even the scared students stopped whispering. They had been so focused on being afraid of the human that they had forgotten he was also a victim. His ship had been destroyed. His friends were dead. He had crashed here not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. A student named Lyra spoke softly. "We are sorry for your loss." Danny looked up at her. His eyes were wet. The professor realized with shock that humans could cry. They had tear ducts like many species. They showed emotion through facial expressions and body language. They felt pain and loss just like everyone else. "Thank you," Danny said. His voice was rough with emotion. "That means a lot." The door finally opened. 6 security officers rushed in, all wearing heavy armor and carrying large stun weapons. The weapons were designed to stop dangerous megafauna, creatures weighing several tons. The fact that they brought these weapons for one human showed how seriously they took the threat. The lead officer was named Torvan. He was Velkari like the professor, but much bigger and more muscular. His armor had combat markings on it. He had seen action before. His voice came through his helmet speakers, amplified and commanding. "Humans, step away from the escape pod. Put your hands where we can see them. Make no sudden movements." Danny did exactly as he was told. He moved slowly away from the pod, raising both hands above his head. The movement made his injury worse. Fresh blood poured down his side and he made a small sound of pain, but he kept his hands up and stayed still. "I am unarmed," Danny said clearly. "I am injured and request medical assistance. I also need to contact Earth Fleet Command about the raider attack." Torvan gestured to his team. 2 officers moved forward with a containment field generator. It was a portable device that could create an energy barrier around a target. They were going to cage the human like a dangerous animal. The professor felt uncomfortable about this. Danny had been cooperative. He had not threatened anyone. He was hurt and alone and had just lost his crew. Did they really need to treat him like a wild beast? But protocol was protocol, and until they knew more about human capabilities, caution was necessary. The galaxy had only known about humans for a few years. There was still so much to learn, so much to fear. The containment field activated with a soft hum. A blue glow surrounded Danny, creating a cylinder of energy from floor to ceiling. He was trapped inside, though the barrier was large enough that he could sit down if he wanted to. The field would stop him if he tried to break through. Probably. Nobody had actually tested a containment field against a human before. Medical officers entered next, pushing a hovering stretcher. They approached the field carefully, scanning Danny through the barrier. Their devices showed holographic readouts that made them gasp and whisper to each other. "His bone density is off the scale. Look at his muscle structure. How is that even possible? His cardiovascular system has multiple redundancies. The translator chip says his world has 1.0 gravity. No wonder he is so strong." They were treating Danny like a science project. The professor understood the fascination, but it still felt wrong somehow. Danny was not just an interesting specimen. He was a person who had been through something terrible today. Torvan spoke into his communicator. "Medical assessment needed. The human is injured but stable. Requesting permission to transport." The medical bay was 3 levels down from the damaged lab. Danny rode the transport platform in silence, still surrounded by the blue glow of the containment field. The security team walked beside him with weapons ready. The medical officers followed behind, constantly checking their scanners and whispering to each other about his impossible biology. Professor Zinthar had insisted on coming along. He told himself it was to observe and learn, which was true, but part of him also felt responsible. The human had crashed into his classroom. The least he could do was make sure Danny was treated properly. The students had been evacuated to a safe area. Some were still crying. Others were excited, talking about how they had met a real human. A few of the braver ones had even asked Danny questions before security took him away. What was Earth like? Did he really have backup organs? Could humans actually smell fear? Danny had answered patiently, despite his injury. Yes, Earth was tough but beautiful. Yes, humans had some redundant systems. And no, humans could not smell fear, at least not the way some predators could. He had seemed almost amused by that last question. Now as they entered the medical bay, Danny looked around with interest. The room was clean and white, filled with equipment that hummed and beeped. Several beds lined the walls, each one surrounded by medical scanners and treatment devices. Everything was smaller and more delicate than what humans would use. The beds looked like they might break if Danny sat on them too hard. The medical team leader was a female Valkyrie named Sira. She was older than the students, with skin that had faded to a lighter blue with age. She had been a doctor for 30 years and had seen many species but never a human. Her hands shook slightly as she prepared her instruments. "Lower the containment field," she ordered. "I cannot treat him through it," Torvon hesitated. "Are you certain?" "We do not know if he will become aggressive." Danny spoke up, his voice tired. "I am not going to attack a doctor. I need medical help and you are offering it." "Why would I be aggressive?" Sira nodded to Torvon. "Lower it. If I cannot touch him, I cannot help him. And despite what you think, this human is dying." That got everyone's attention. Danny was standing upright, talking normally, seeming almost fine except for the blood on his suit. "How could he be dying?" "His blood pressure is dropping," Sira explained, pointing at her scanner. "He has lost nearly 3 liters of blood. For a human of his size, that is approaching critical levels. Much more and his organs will start to fail. 3 liters. The professor did a quick calculation. That was more blood than a Valkyrie had in their entire body, and Danny had lost it over the past hour while remaining conscious and coherent. Incredible and terrifying at the same time. The containment field dropped. Danny swayed slightly but stayed on his feet. Sira approached carefully as if expecting him to lash out, but he just stood there holding his wounded side. "May I examine you?" she asked formally. "Please do," Danny said. "I would like to not bleed to death if possible." Sira used her scanning device first, not touching him yet. The device painted holographic images in the air, showing Danny's internal structure. The other medical staff gathered around to look, forgetting their fear in the face of such fascinating biology. Danny's skeleton appeared first. The bones were thick and dense, reinforced with calcium deposits that would make them nearly unbreakable. His skull was particularly strong, designed to protect the brain from impacts that would kill most species instantly. His ribcage was like armor, protecting vital organs. Next came the muscles, layer upon layer of efficient tissue, packed tight and designed for both strength and endurance. Human muscles could exert force in short bursts or maintain effort for hours. They were supplied by an extensive network of blood vessels that delivered oxygen and nutrients constantly. The cardiovascular system was perhaps the most impressive. Danny had a 4-chambered heart that pumped with steady rhythm. Backup systems existed throughout his body. His muscles stored oxygen in something called myoglobin. His blood had multiple types of cells for different purposes. His liver could regenerate even if partially damaged. His kidneys were redundant, 2 organs doing work that could be handled by one in an emergency. "It is like his whole body is designed with backups," one medical officer said in awe. "Every system has a failsafe." "That is what happens when you evolve on a world trying to kill you," Danny said. He had been watching the scans too, seeing his own insides displayed in the air. Humans who did not have tough bodies died young. Only the strong survived long enough to have children. After millions of years of that, you get us. Sira finally touched him very gently near the wound. Danny flinched but did not pull away. She carefully cut away the damaged flight suit to expose the injury fully. It was a deep gash that ran from his lower ribs to his hip. Metal fragments were embedded in the tissue. Blood still oozed out, though slower now as Danny's body worked to clot the wound. "This would kill any species I know," Sira said quietly. "The fact that you walked and talked with this injury is beyond my understanding." "Adrenaline helps," Danny explained. "Human bodies dump chemicals into the bloodstream when we are in danger. It blocks pain, increases strength, sharpens focus, makes it possible to keep going even when injured. It is a survival mechanism." He paused, then added, "It is also probably why I'm about to pass out now that I feel safe. The adrenaline is wearing off." He was right. His skin, already pale from blood loss, went even whiter. His eyes lost focus. He started to sway. "Get him on the bed," Sira ordered. 2 security officers jumped forward to catch Danny as he collapsed. Even unconscious, he was heavy. They struggled to lift him onto the medical bed, which creaked under his weight. Now that Danny was unconscious, Sira worked quickly. She cleaned the wound, using tools designed for species much more fragile than humans. Some of the instruments broke or bent when used on his tough skin. She had to use stronger equipment, tools normally reserved for working with dense materials. The metal fragments came out one by one. Each piece was jagged and sharp. How Danny had stayed conscious with these cutting into him was a mystery. Sira sealed blood vessels using a medical laser that barely cut through human tissue. She had to increase the power 3 times before it worked properly. Professor Zinthar watched the entire procedure. He was learning things that no textbook could teach. Humans were not invincible. They could be hurt, could bleed, could die. But they were so much tougher than anyone else that it seemed like magic. What would it be like to live in a body like that? To know that you could survive things that would kill most other beings? His vital signs are stabilizing, one of the medical officers reported. The bleeding has stopped. His body is already beginning to heal the damaged tissue. Already healing. Danny had been unconscious for less than 20 minutes and his body was already repairing itself. Sira confirmed this with another scan. The wound edges were knitting together, cells multiplying rapidly to close the gap. Within a few days there would be a scar. Within a few weeks even that would fade. Remarkable, Sira breathed. His healing factor is at least 10 times faster than a Velkari. Is that safe? Torvan asked. He had removed his helmet now that the threat seemed to be over. Rapid healing can cause problems. Cancer, tissue damage, system failures. Human bodies account for that too, Sira said, reading from her database. They have mechanisms to prevent runaway cell growth. Their immune systems attack abnormal cells constantly. They are designed to heal fast without the usual complications. It all came back to the same thing. Earth was so dangerous that only the most efficient biology could survive there. Humans were the result of millions of years of harsh natural selection. They were what happened when a world forced life to adapt or die. A soft beep came from the communications terminal. Torvan walked over to check it. His face changed as he read the message. Earth fleet ship is 3 hours out. The Constitution, a heavy cruiser. They are demanding to speak with Lieutenant Hayes immediately. He is unconscious, Sira said. He cannot speak to anyone right now. Then they will speak with whoever is in charge here, Torvan replied. And they do not sound happy. Professor Zinthar stepped forward. I will speak with them. The human crashed into my classroom. I am responsible for his well-being while he is at our station. The communication channel opened. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a woman with short dark hair and sharp eyes. She wore a military uniform with many medals on the chest. Her expression was cold and angry. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earth Fleet ship Constitution. Who am I speaking with? Professor Zinthar of the Velkari Institute. I am the senior faculty member present. Where is Lieutenant Hayes? Her voice was hard, demanding. He is receiving medical treatment. He was injured during his escape pod landing. He is stable but unconscious. Captain Morgan's eyes narrowed. Was he harmed by your people? No, the professor said quickly. His injuries came from the raider attack. We are helping him. Your lieutenant has been cooperative and polite despite his circumstances. The captain's expression softened slightly. I want to see him. Sira adjusted the camera to show Danny lying on the medical bed. He looked small and... Danny woke up slowly. His head felt heavy and his thoughts were fuzzy. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then memory came rushing back. The raider attack. The escape pod. Crashing into the alien school. All those terrified faces staring at him like he was a monster. He opened his eyes carefully. The room was too bright and he had to squint. White walls, medical equipment, the smell of antiseptic, a hospital room, or whatever aliens used for hospitals. He tried to sit up, but his body protested. Pain shot through his side where the metal had cut him. Easy, Lieutenant Hayes. A voice spoke in Galactic Standard. Danny turned his head to see Professor Zinthar sitting in a chair beside the bed. The Velkari looked tired but alert. You have been unconscious for 4 hours. Your body needed rest to heal. Danny took stock of himself. His flight suit was gone, replaced with a simple medical gown. Bandages wrapped around his torso. His side hurt, but not as badly as before. Someone had done good work patching him up. Thank you, Danny said. His voice came out rough and dry. For taking care of me. I know I scared everyone. The professor's skin shifted to a warmer blue color. Danny had read that this meant comfort or friendliness in Velkari. You did frighten us. But you also showed us that fear can be overcome with understanding. My students learned something important today. What did they learn? That humans are tough to kill? Danny tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. They learned that being different does not mean being dangerous, the professor said, and that even creatures from Deathworlds can be kind and reasonable. Danny thought about this. He knew humans had a reputation in the galaxy. The scary monsters from the Nightmare Planet. The predators who ate anything and survived everything. But humans were just people trying to make their way in the universe. They had feelings and fears just like everyone else. "How are your students?" Danny asked. "I saw some of them faint. They are fine. Shaken but unharmed. Actually, some of them want to meet you properly. Once you are recovered, of course." This surprised Danny. "They want to meet me? After I crashed into their classroom and bled all over their floor?" "Young minds are curious," the professor said with what might have been a smile. "The fear is fading and the questions are beginning. What is Earth like? How do humans survive such a harsh world? Can you really run for hours without stopping? They want to understand." The door opened and Dr. Sierra entered carrying a medical scanner. She approached the bed carefully, though she seemed less afraid than before. Seeing Danny unconscious and vulnerable had probably helped. Hard to be scared of someone when you had spent hours putting them back together. "How is your pain?" she asked, running the scanner over his torso. "Manageable, about a 5 out of 10. Danny saw her confused look. "Sorry, human pain scale. 5 means it hurts, but I can function. 10 would be the worst pain imaginable. And what would 1 be? No pain at all. Perfect health." Sierra made notes on her datapad. "Your species has a numerical system for pain?" "That is practical. We get hurt a lot," Danny said. "It helps doctors know how serious things are. Though humans have different pain tolerances. What is a 5 for me might be an 8 for someone else." The scanner beeped and Sierra studied the results. Her eyes went wide. "Impossible. Your wound has healed by 40% already. The tissue is knitting back together. At this rate, you will be fully recovered in 3 days." "Sounds about right," Danny said. "Though I will probably be sore for a week or 2 after that. The scar will take longer to fade. 3 days to heal a wound that should have taken months." Sierra shook her head in disbelief. She had seen the injury when Danny first arrived. It had been serious, the kind of wound that killed people, but human biology played by different rules. Torvan entered next, still in his security armor but with his helmet off. He studied Danny with professional interest. "Lieutenant Hayes, I apologize for the containment field earlier. We did not know what to expect from a human." "No apology needed," Danny said. "You were protecting your people." "I respect that. I would have done the same thing in your position." Torvan seemed surprised by this answer. "You are not angry about how you were treated?" "Angry? No. I am a stranger from a Deathworld who crashed into a school. You had every right to be cautious. I'm just glad nobody got hurt." Danny paused. "Well, nobody except me. But that was my own fault for getting shot down." The security officer relaxed slightly. "Your captain contacted us. The Constitution will arrive in 2 hours. She is very concerned about you." "That is Captain Morgan," Danny said with genuine warmth in his voice. "She takes care of her crew. Always has." His expression darkened. "She is going to be upset about the Meridian. We lost good people today." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Professor Zinthar spoke gently. "You mentioned your friend Jake. Were you close?" Danny's jaw tightened. He looked away, staring at the white wall. "We went through training together. He saved my life once during a boarding action with pirates. I saved his during a rescue mission on a colony world. We were supposed to have dinner next week to celebrate his promotion." His voice cracked. "Now he is gone. They are all gone, and I am the only one who made it out." Tears formed in Danny's eyes. He did not try to hide them. The aliens in the room watched as the dangerous Deathworld predator cried for his lost friends. It was a powerful moment seeing such raw emotion from a species they had been taught to fear. Sierra put a gentle hand on Danny's arm. It was the first time she had willingly touched him without medical necessity. Loss of packmates is the worst pain in the galaxy. "We are truly sorry." "Thank you," Danny managed to say. He wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand. "Sorry. Humans cry when we are sad. It is how we process grief." "Many species cry," the professor said. "It is not something to apologize for. Emotion is what makes us people, not monsters." The door opened again and several students peeked in nervously. Lyra was in front with Kellix and Pip behind her. They looked scared but determined. Professor Zinthar started to send them away, but Danny spoke first. "It is okay. They can come in if they want." The students entered slowly, staying near the door as if ready to run. Lyra held something in her hands. It was a small crystal, beautifully carved and glowing with soft light. She stepped forward and held it out to Danny. "This is for you," she said, her voice shaking only a little. "It is a Velkari friendship crystal. We give them to people we respect. You crashed into our school and you were hurt and scared, but you were still kind to us. You did not hurt anyone, even though you could have. That takes real strength." Danny took the crystal carefully. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly heavy. He could see tiny patterns carved into its surface, probably symbols that meant something in Velkari culture. He felt his throat get tight again. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I will treasure this. And I promise, when I am better, I will come back and answer all your questions about Earth and humans. Deal?" Lyra smiled, her skin brightening to a happy shade of blue. "Deal." Kellic stepped forward next. "Is it true that humans eat food that burns their mouths?" "You mean spicy food?" "Yes, some humans love it. We have these peppers on Earth that are so hot they can make you cry, but they taste really good if you can handle the heat." "Why would you eat something that hurts?" Pip asked, genuinely confused. Danny laughed, then winced at the pain in his side. "Because the hurt is temporary, but the flavor is worth it. Humans have a saying, no pain, no gain. We think challenges make life interesting, even small challenges like spicy food." The students peppered him with more questions. Did humans really have to exercise to stay healthy? Yes, and most humans enjoyed it. Did humans really keep predators as pets? Yes, though they had been domesticated for thousands of years and were not dangerous anymore. Did humans really explore dangerous places just for fun? Yes, humans loved adventure and discovery. Professor Zinthar watched the interaction with satisfaction. This was better than any lecture he could give. His students were learning that aliens, even scary ones, were just people with different backgrounds. They were learning to ask questions instead of running away in fear. Dr. Sira checked Danny's vital signs again. "You should rest. Talking is fine, but do not overdo it. Your body is still healing." "I feel pretty good, actually," Danny said. "Human healing comes with increased energy. Our bodies kick into high gear when repairing damage. Nevertheless, rest is important. Your captain will be here soon, and I am sure she will want a full report." The student said goodbye and left, promising to visit again tomorrow. Torvon excused himself to prepare for the Constitution's arrival. Soon it was just Danny, the professor, and the doctor. "Can I ask you something?" Danny said. "When you all saw me, why did you react so strongly? I mean, I know humans have a reputation, but you all acted like I was about to attack." Professor Zinthar considered his answer carefully, "Because we have no context for Deathworlders. Our entire civilization is built on safety and comfort. We avoid danger whenever possible. The idea of a species that evolved in constant danger, that thrives on challenge, that sees obstacles as opportunities, it is completely foreign to us. You represent everything we have spent millions of years trying to escape from." "But that does not make us bad," Danny said. "Just different. Yes, and that is what we are learning. Difference is not inherently dangerous. In fact, your differences make you valuable. The galaxy needs people." Wage Captain Lisa Morgan arrived at the Velkari Institute exactly 2 hours later. She came alone, having left her ship in orbit under the command of her first officer. The transport shuttle docked smoothly and she walked through the corridors with purpose. Station personnel watched her pass with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. Another human, another Deathworlder on their peaceful station. Lisa was shorter than Danny, maybe 1.70 meters tall, but she carried herself with confidence that made her seem bigger. Her uniform was crisp and decorated with medals from various campaigns. She had been in Earth Fleet for 20 years, working her way up from ensign to captain through skill and determination. Her crew loved her, and her enemies feared her. Professor Zinthar met her at the medical bay entrance. He had cleaned himself up and changed his teaching robes for something more formal. First impressions mattered with humans, he had learned. They valued respect and courtesy just like most species. "Captain Morgan, welcome to the Velkari Institute. I am Professor Zinthar." Lisa shook his hand firmly. Humans greeted each other with hand contact, another predator trait that made some aliens uncomfortable. But the professor managed not to flinch. "Professor, thank you for taking care of my officer. How is he?" "Recovering well. Human healing rates are remarkable. He should be fit for duty in a few days. Can I see him?" "Of course. Please follow me." They walked through the medical bay to where Danny was resting. He was awake now, sitting up in bed and looking much better than he had hours ago. His color had returned and his eyes were alert. When he saw his captain, he tried to stand at attention, but she waved him back down. "At ease, Lieutenant. You have been through enough today." She pulled up a chair and sat beside his bed. Her expression was serious, but her eyes showed concern. "Give me your report." Danny straightened up despite the pain it caused. Military discipline ran deep. "Yes, ma'am. The Meridian was conducting routine survey operations in Sector 7 when we were ambushed by 3 unidentified vessels. They opened fire without warning or communication. We attempted evasive maneuvers but took critical hits to the engine and life support. Captain Rodriguez ordered abandon ship. I made it to Pod 7 and ejected. I do not know if anyone else got out." Lisa's jaw tightened. "They did not. Search and rescue found debris but no other pods. You were the only survivor, Danny." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had known deep down that his crewmates were probably dead. But hearing it confirmed made it real, final. His friends were gone and he was the last one left to remember them. 17 good people, Danny said quietly. Gone. Just like that. "The Raiders will answer for this," Lisa said. Her voice was cold and hard. "We tracked them to a base in the Outer Rim. Galactic authorities are coordinating with Earth Fleet for a joint operation. They will face justice. Justice will not bring back the crew." Danny looked down at his hands. They were steady now, but they had shaken earlier when he thought about what happened. Captain Rodriguez was 3 months from retirement. Jake was getting married next year. Ensign Chen just had a baby daughter. They all had lives, plans, futures. Now they have nothing. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. It was a human gesture of comfort and support. "You survived. That matters. You can tell their stories. Make sure they are remembered. That is important too." They sat in silence for a moment, sharing grief in the way soldiers did. No words needed, just presence and understanding. Professor Zinthar watched from the doorway, feeling like he was intruding on something private. But he also felt he was seeing something important. Humans in pain, supporting each other, processing loss together. Finally, Lisa spoke again. "The station director wants to meet you. Apparently, you made quite an impression crashing into their school." "I bet I did. Nothing says diplomatic incident like a human in an escape pod. Actually, the director said you handled things well. You stayed calm, cooperated with security, and did not hurt anyone despite being injured and outnumbered. The students are calling you a hero," Danny laughed, then winced. "Hero? I crashed into their lab and scared them half to death. You also showed them that humans are not monsters. You proved that Deathworlders can be reasonable and kind. That is worth something in this galaxy." Professor Zinthar stepped forward. "If I may, Captain, your lieutenant has been invited to give a lecture series at our institute when he recovers. My students are very eager to learn more about Earth and human culture. If Earth Fleet approves, of course." Lisa looked at Danny. "What do you think, Lieutenant? Want to be a teacher for a while?" "I would like that," Danny said. "Someone needs to show the galaxy that humans are more than just scary stories. Might as well be me. Then it is settled. After you recover and complete your debrief, you can return here on temporary assignment. Consider it light duty while you process everything that happened." Over the next several hours, station personnel came and went. Danny gave his official report to the galactic authorities, describing the raider attack in detail. He identified the ships from a database, confirming they were known pirates operating in the region. His testimony would help convict them when they were caught. Director Halvin visited personally to apologize for the panic Danny's arrival had caused. Danny politely said no apology was needed and praised the Institute's medical staff for their excellent care. The director seemed relieved that the human was not angry about his treatment. The students returned in small groups, bringing gifts and asking questions. Lyra brought her whole class and they spent an hour talking about Earth's geography, human history, and what daily life was like on a death world. Danny found himself enjoying the teaching, explaining things he had always taken for granted. "So humans really exercise every day?" Kellix asked. "Even when they do not need to?" "Most humans try to," Danny explained. "Our bodies are built for activity. If we do not use our muscles regularly, they get weak. Plus, exercise releases chemicals in our brains that make us happy. It is actually fun once you get used to it." "I cannot imagine finding pain fun," Pip said. "It is not really pain, more like effort. You push yourself a little bit each time and you get stronger. There is satisfaction in that, in knowing you are better today than you were yesterday." The students absorbed this information, trying to understand a mindset so foreign to their own experiences. On their worlds, comfort was the goal. On Earth, challenge was embraced. It was a fundamental difference in philosophy. Dr. Sira ran more tests, documenting Danny's healing progress for her medical journals. She was writing a paper on human physiology that would be read by doctors across the galaxy. Danny was happy to help, answering questions about human medicine, common injuries, and how Earth doctors treated various conditions. On Earth, do you have many Deathworld injuries? She asked. Attacks by predators, exposure to toxins, that sort of thing. Actually, most human injuries are pretty mundane, Danny said. Falls, vehicle accidents, sports injuries. We have learned to avoid most of Earth's dangers through technology and knowledge. Predator attacks are rare in civilized areas. We mostly just hurt ourselves doing stupid things. Stupid things? You know, trying tricks we are not ready for, testing our limits, showing off for friends. Humans take risks for social reasons as much as survival ones. We want to impress each other, prove ourselves. Sometimes we get hurt in the process. Sira found this fascinating. Risk-taking for social status was not something her species understood. But she was beginning to see that human behavior made sense within their own cultural context. As the day wore on, Danny grew tired. His body needed rest to complete its healing. Captain Morgan had returned to her ship but promised to check in daily. The students had gone back to their classes, though several had asked permission to visit again tomorrow. Professor Zinthar sat with Danny one last time before leaving for the evening. You have done something important today, Lieutenant. You have changed minds and opened hearts. My students will never forget this. I just tried to be myself, Danny said. Turns out that is enough. Being yourself is always enough. That is what they needed to see. A human being human, not a monster being monstrous. The professor left and Danny was alone with his thoughts. He looked at the friendship crystal Lyra had given him, still sitting on the bedside table. It glowed softly in the dim light. Such a simple gift, but it meant the world to him. He thought about his lost crew, about the memorial service that would be held for them. He would attend and he would speak about each person, making sure they were remembered properly. It would hurt, but it was necessary. The dead deserved to be honored. But he also thought about the future. About coming back here to teach, about helping aliens understand humans better. Maybe that could be his new mission. Not exploring space, but exploring the gaps between species, building bridges through understanding. Earth had joined the galactic community only a few years ago. There was still so much fear and misunderstanding. But it could change. One conversation at a time, one encounter at a time, humans could show the galaxy who they really were. Not monsters from a Naito Kenha.